Welcome everybody to this fireside chat with Marieme Jamme. My name is Tinna Nielsen, and I've actually only met Marieme a couple of times before this chat. We are so fortunate to be a part of the World Economic Forum Young Global Leaders community, and we're both working on creating a more equal world. And every time I've met you, it's been super busy, and I was every time thinking to myself how lovely it could be to actually sit down one day and have a deep dive chat. But never did I imagine that we would do it with an audience and sitting here with a fake fire. So I'm happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much.
You have quite an extraordinary life journey, and I think of the kind that none of us in here even have the imagination to imagine. You're obviously here on stage today because you've achieved something really extraordinary. You are, as I said, selected by the World Economic Forum as a leader that can improve the state of the world, which is a big thing. You have been named twice as one of the 100 most influential Africans. And you have other awards on your CV. And I would actually like this conversation to give you freedom to take us wherever you want us to go. And of course, we'd love to hear a lot more about these really interesting projects you have going right now, like I Am the Code. But I'd like to invite you to think back of a time in your life that was a defining moment for you, a time where you were at a crossroad, a time that stands out for you in terms of you having to make an important decision, and let that be the starting point of this chat.
Well, thank you, Tina. You're one of my heroes. You know, I've been watching your work, and we just need some wine right now and some chips.
It's not wine. Sorry, water.
So no, I'm really honored to be here. It's really weird that I'm sitting in this chair with you. And I think if you ask me in the 1990s if I would sit in this sort of room and travel to Norway and come here, I wouldn't believe it. And that because of the childhood I had. I'm from Senegal, West Africa. Many people don't know where it is. And I was very unfortunate to have my mother abandon us as children at the age of 5 years old. And so, I had a terrible childhood, really difficult life, lived in poverty, but deep poverty, really abandoned and neglected by society. At the age of 13 years old, I was trafficked from my country, Senegal, to Paris, where I was a young prostitute in France until I got picked up by the French government when I was 16 years old. So everything I've been seeing here today just reminded me that some of us can come really far in our lives. And at the age of 16, I started reading and writing. So I started reading and writing when I was 16 years old. So I've never been to school, never sat in a classroom. And I think that some of the defining moments were when I was at the tube station in Paris, where I was so cold and so really conflicted in my mind that I didn't know what to do as a young girl, and the French police raided the Boulevard Nation, and then the lady shouted at us and got us into the bus. And that was a defining moment because every single day I was thinking tomorrow will get better, tomorrow will get better, things will get better, things will get better. And I think that when you suffer and you've been through difficulty and pain in your life, you kind of like almost program your mind that every day will get better. And that was a very defining moment for me when I went to the police station, got checked by the psychologists, and they realized in the end that I was not a prostitute, but I was just abandoned on the street. And that really gave me hope. I had a lot of years of therapy and getting myself together. But that moment was absolutely a defining moment to believe that things will get better.
It gave you hope?
Yeah, it gave me hope. Also gave me trust, because when I didn't see that amount of white people before. I was from Senegal and everything was traumatizing. But I think the way she looked at me, and when they sent me to the refuge center, the Moroccan lady, took my hand and said everything will be fine. And I was in a refuge center with Rwandese and South Sudanese and many people. That gave me hope that I was safe and I was no longer on the street.
So imagine that everybody who had been exposed to the things you've been exposed to, that they would think like you. I think the world will look different. But I think a lot of them get stuck in a role of being a victim. So how was this different for you? How did you step out of that?
That's a very good question. I think throughout the years, I've been really thinking a lot about being courageous and having fear. And I think most of us in life, we choose fear. We choose fear because fear makes us comfortable. Fear makes us that we just sit in our little corner, we don't try harder. But people like us, we didn't have a choice. So we didn't have a choice to do anything else. And when you live in this sort of world, in Britain, where I'm today, a proud British citizen, and I'm at peace and everything, I think about the people who don't have access to think, have access to safe environments, have access to, even local libraries where you can just sit and think. And so I choose courage, because in life you have three things. Either you take action or you don't take action. Either way, there will be consequences. And so that's what I believe in life. And then I think that I choose to meet people, I choose to learn from people, I choose to take action. When some decisions are extremely crucial in life, for example, young girls around the world being violated, being molested, they're criminals, they live in prisons. Young girls living in refugee camps, and in slums, in favela, and I've been lucky to travel around the world. You cannot sit down and just watch the world, sit down in our bubble. So then I choose courage to go and make a difference, to speak up, to make people very uncomfortable. I do make people feel very uncomfortable, because that's what I do. My job is to make people uncomfortable that they can take action. When you make people uncomfortable, they will take action.
And you make them uncomfortable because you put up a mirror, or because of your mere presence and with your life story that makes them feel uncomfortable?
No, I make them feel uncomfortable. No, I make them feel uncomfortable because, we are in a society. If we all be honest with ourselves and say this is our world, all of us are in it together, then we cannot forget the part of the society we have. If you just go to Kakuma village in Kenya, we have 200,000 people live in that camp. You go to detention centers in Europe where people are desperate to get out and to have a life. You go to all around the world, people are desperate to find happiness and peace and even to think. Nobody does anything about that. And so we go around, slogans and data and information, but we forget about the humanity component. Those young girls living in Kakuma camp, in the refugee Kakuma camp, they cannot go out. They haven't committed any crime. And so I make people uncomfortable, governments and private sector and investors, so they can take little action by changing their policies, or by hiring the young women and the girls, or by just funding their scholarships, or by just looking after people. So and I became Buddhist 13 years ago, and I believe in right intentions. And if you get the right intentions and do the right thing, people's life can change. Many people have participated in my life, in my upbringing. The French government gave me a passport. The United Kingdom gave me a safe space to live. My son is 17 years old. I don't have GCSE or A-levels. I'm doing my study next year. But most of my friends are, they've been to Ivy Leagues, and they're global leaders. They've been studying for many, many years. And so I just feel that it's a different, they took the different train than myself. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings, if you think about that.
But so I'm curious to learn a little bit more from you, and also inspire some of the people in the room in terms of how you do this, because you are an activist today. You are a change maker, and you actually make things change. So do you have a specific way you make people feel uncomfortable and that motivates them to take action? Or is it just by being you? Is this something that others could imitate and learn from? Do you have like a special approach? Do you?
No, I think it's being yourself. But like I said earlier, when you've been through pain, through loss, and through gain, when you've been through all of those kind of things, you have nothing to lose. I just have nothing to lose right now. I have nothing to lose. Yeah. And I've got one single life in this society where we are, and I need to make a difference before I go. Yeah. And that's my motto. And I think the way I make government take action is to launch global movements, where for many years nobody actually took care of young girls living in marginalized communities to have access to technology. And because I didn't go to school, I was not relevant compared to my peers who had scholarships and had stable childhood and they had education. Everything was paid for them, and so I had to do something different, which was learning how to code 7 languages in 2 years in my local library in Guildford. So I'm a full stack developer. So I code like I drink water, and my friends can't do that. And so, but what I do is I take that sort of methodology and I go and tell the world, join my movement, because you have skills in leadership, you have skills in engineering, you have skills in
mentoring.
Let us work together to enable 1 million women and girl coders by 2030.
And this is your project?
Yeah, this is I Am the Code, yeah.
The I Am the Code.
And it's been very successful because everyone can play a part. You can mentor young women. You can teach them digital skills. SWAT can teach them, art and media. And if we all work together as human beings, we can make a difference. And so I make people, nudge them a little bit to take action, because we cannot forget those people around the world. And then, I Am the Code is now in 61 countries. But we need to take action before. I'm 44 years old. In the next 10, 12 years, the world needs to make a difference. And if we can get even, 500,000 girls around the world who live in favelas, in slums, in prisons, in detention centers, women across Europe who are digitally illiterate can't get the jobs they're looking for because we have a flux of immigrants coming across the world. There's a globalization. At least we can work together and make a difference. But at the moment, we're all, closing our eyes into the real issues we have in the world. And so my job is to go and create movements, work with global leaders. We have young global leaders. We have people here who are part of this amazing movement. And we can all learn from each other, not make each other, feel that we cannot do it. But I think sometimes we need to be a little bit uncomfortable to take action.
Yeah. So the initiative I Am the Code is very hands-on. It's with girls. It's really to empower them and enable them to do something different with their lives.
Absolutely.
But as I understood in our conversation yesterday, you also work very much on a systemic level. You're trying to really influence policymakers and government and. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, because in my country, Senegal is a Muslim country. It's a very class system. Many girls don't go to school. So right now we have 130 million girls around the world who don't have access to education, based on either the system of their countries, the policies around STEM subjects, or even the policies are not favorable to women and girls. And so what I'm trying to do and ask government to make a systematic change, really look into their hearts and empathy and compassion and kindness, and to say, what can we do for this next generation?
And do you trigger? Do you actually succeed in triggering
Absolutely.
empathy?
So we did the 21 policies across the world right now, including Nepal, Argentina, and Afghanistan, where girls are learning how to code. They're learning real digital skills. They can code 4 languages. Just one girl can code from Python to Java, CoffeeScript. They can do all of this work. They can build a blockchain platform. They can build e-commerce sites. They have ideas. I just came back from Kenya, where we had 80 girls. And next week, Bruno Sanchez, he's a scientist. He's going to join me in Liverpool. He's going to have 20 girls with him. And so we get them to think about real-time solutions. And I know your work been working quite a lot on climate change issues, but also on on Sustainable Development Goals, and now we are the first organization where girls are sitting down decoding the Sustainable Development Goals. Because we promised, and Kofi Annan, who died a couple of days ago, promised the world that we were going to create a better world. But we are not creating a better world. We are creating a world divided, fragmented by many, many things. And so when I talk to government, I address these issues, really fundamental social issues that they can do. Sometimes we just need a champion in government to make a difference. In the private sector, they need to hire the girls. We cannot just have girls in private schools or girls who have access comprehensive schools. But these marginalized girls are absolutely amazing. Because I was one of them. You know, I was absolutely one of them. But now, if we give back to society, as Jamie said this morning, paying it forward, getting the girls to learn digital skills when they come out of the Kakuma camp or the Dubab camp, they can have a job. They can go back home. Even if they can't come out of their societies, because they need to wear their hijabs, they can sit at home with internet coding websites. And then you get the foundation. There's a lot of money going around education. And I think what we heard today, education matters, but it doesn't matter for us. Because we are functioning and we're sitting here next to people, but we haven't been educated. But society has educated us. The pain we've been through, the difficulty, the abandonment, the negligence of society. It took us many, many years to be here. So I don't know how long it will take the girls in Kakuma to be, the next Marieme Jammes. But if we don't try our society, if we don't even listen to each other, we don't create the environment, we don't spend an hour a month to even talk to the girls, we cannot claim to be a fair society.
I mean, you could imagine that for a little girl in Kakuma refugee camp, listening to your story and hearing your hope would make a life difference for many of them. But I'm just selfishly very, very curious to understand how you as a 16-year-old in a police station came from that to what you just told us about.
That's an interesting
because that is...
Yeah.
I don't think everybody could do that.
No, I think...
What was your journey there?
I think you're right, is that... I think, like I said earlier, when you've been through pain, when you understand, not having a mother and a father, not having a guidance, being in the hand of people, many of us go through pain in life. But I choose to end my suffering by being a Buddhist 13 years ago, by forgiving my mother, and by thinking that I should be here. I am here because I was meant to be here. And so my motto every day is, every day I wake up, I try to teach people, I try to educate, and I try to inform. Every day that's what I do. So I make deliberate action to help people.
And you were able to do this as a 16-year-old? You started school, you were learning how to read and write for the first time in your life?
Absolutely, doing cleaning jobs.
This was your daily
daily
mindset
activity, my daily activity and my daily mindset. And because I left Senegal. I left Senegal in hurry. And I was given Valium to get into a plane. So completely, traumatized as a young girl. And many girls are going through that now. But when I came to the UK, I started doing cleaning jobs. I was in a YMCA, working in bars, in hotels, in restaurants. And I think I didn't have any identity. I didn't understand who I was as a person. I was seeing black men and black women dressing nice around the street. I didn't know where they came from. But I think peace, being in a mind where you can find peace, somewhere there's no violence. Many young girls, they live in violence. And so I was going to a local library with my card and just sit quietly. Just sit quietly to absorb all this information, which I'd never had before. And I think peace, being in a peaceful environment or in a green environment where you can go for walk and come back, use your brain and your mental health, can also help. And I think that's what made me really... I had peace in the southeast of England. I had big peace, and I was lonely, but I had a peace with my brain. I knew that nobody will violate me again, nobody will rape me again, nobody will do the bad thing they did to me. And when I became a young global leader from the World Economic Forum, which is now my family, I never knew I'll be a young global leader. But I changed abortion law of my country, because in my country, when a young girl is raped or violated, crime, nobody is being accounted for. And so I become young global leader around the world, and now what I do is I go and help government, private sector, and tell them my story. I share my story not because I feel that society owes me anything, but I think that we need to take action. We need to take real action because these issues are real. We can choose to not think about it and just say, okay, my life is really great, I'm going to focus on that. Or you can just spend a day or a couple of hours during the week to help people. And I think as human beings, we are responsible for our actions. And if you leave tomorrow as a legacy, helping a young girl, if you see people, young girls in Uganda, in Senegal, the way they are now confident, it didn't take long. It doesn't take long to change someone's life. And you just need to listen to them and have empathy, compassion, but also put yourself in their shoes. And what I do right now is just absolutely that. And I am so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful that the United Kingdom gave me my passport and the French government gave me my passport, that the World Economic Forum opened these doors for me across the world. It's unbelievable that you can come from nowhere and to arrive here. And so every day I wake up, I'm just absolutely grateful for where I am.
Thank you. So, respect of time, I'd like to also open up for questions. I have the privilege of being on a boat with you for 3 days, so I can pour all my questions on you, and I will. But
so I have a question. I'm a huge fan, and I've been a fan of a lot of other women activists. Malala is a great inspiration for me. My question to you is, as many women as well as male feminists going to activism overall for women rights, do you think activism is the right route to use, or should getting directly involved in politics and using the power of politics to really change the way women rights function, or just overall belief structure or mindset should be changed? So should we use the political route, or should we continue with the activism?
I think we should use both. I mean, when you talk about activism, people get scared. We like to make people uncomfortable, but when you talk about activism, people may not know what you're looking for. I choose to help people to create impact in a very nice way and just tell them the issues. Sometimes people just don't know their issues. And I think politicians, sometimes they don't know that girls need to get a job. They don't know girls need to be educated. And these people haven't been educated before themselves. And so what I do is, you create a little bit of activism and pushing them a little harder, but at the same time, you help them understand that in Senegal, girls need to go to school. Because in Mali, if girls don't go to school, they end up being female, genital mutilated. So you give them real issues around the world. Climate change is affecting many, many girls right now around the world. In Kakuma, girls can't breathe, they don't eat properly. Their brain is not working very well. And so there are so many core issues that you as a human being can go and do by explaining things so we decode the information. And I give them my example. I said, if you didn't do anything, try to do something now. Because 44 years when I was young, you didn't do anything. Now you have a chance to do something. And so that's how I go about it. And usually they understand that girls need to go to school, they need to get a job, they need to be healthy, they need to have a better health, they need to think differently. And then if you give them examples, so I use a lot of scenarios in helping government and private sector and NGOs and the United Nations, explain to them that you have the power. We have the power. The collective power we have in this room is unbelievable, really big. But we can all make a difference by spending an hour a week with a young girl who wants to become a pilot. You change her life forever. I've seen it in my own eyes, and I cry all the time everywhere I go because I'm just trying to find, I think that's what Nina asked me yesterday, what is your challenge? My challenge is for people to pay attention. If you pay attention, if you wake up every single day, you pay attention, you'll make a difference. Yeah.
Having your story and coming from the background that you have done and having the experience you have, what do you think you have brought with you from this journey into the work that you have today? A trait or a lesson that you see as a strong part of who you are today?
That's a very good question. Someone asked me that the other day. I think everywhere I go, I try to be myself. There's nothing I can do I'm Marieme Jamme. There's nothing I can do. I cannot change my story. I cannot change the fact I was trafficked. I cannot change the fact that I was neglected. But what I bring all the time is empathy. It's just compassion and kindness. It's to just tell people, pay attention. If you just pay attention, you come and share a place with me and having these sort of chats to just, sometimes we forget that we also need to listen. And I developed a sort of listening skill, which I probably can give you, you can take away. Is that in the world, we don't listen. We listen by distraction. And most of us do this in our day-to-day job, listen by distraction. We listen by charity, because we just have to, or we listen by judgment. But one of the things or we listen by, by the comparison. We compare, and you got Ivy League guys, Harvard, MIT, all of those guys, they do that everywhere you go around the world. And I think the listening I give to people, listening by reciprocity. When you listen to people by reciprocity, you try to understand them, you create meaningful relationships. And everywhere I go, and if I have an opportunity to be in places like this, I remember myself that in the 1990s, in 2000, you were nobody. You were just in the hand of a system. Now you are part of the most influential people in the world. And when people read my bio or my accolade, I can't believe they're talking about me. And so I use this gratitude, this opportunity I have. If I can change 2 people's life, transform their mindset, educate them, inform them, if I can do that, when I go to bed in the evening, at least I know that someone will go tomorrow and make a difference. So that's what I'm trying to bring here.
So you also talked about how you went to so many different countries and you've seen all these things with your own eyes. And I think the thing that you would have realized, the diversity of the problems, the diversity of the challenges out there, and there's no one clean-cut solution to tackle all this. How do you work in all this? I think you mentioned listening to the people, but what can people do to tackle the diversity of the challenges we have right now?
That's a very good question. When I started looking about girls' education, I realized that Malala is doing girls' education. Sarah Brown is doing girls' education. Everybody around the world is talking about girls' education. But I realized that they have failed just by talking about girls' education. And I focus on skills. This is the girls' education problem around the world. It's not a location problem. It's not just Africa. It's all around the world. That's why I took I Am the Code as an African initiative to tell the world this is a global problem. That's why we're in 61 countries right now, from China to Argentina. And I think what I said to people is when you open your heart, when you really see that a young girl sitting down right now in Norway, as an immigrant, Somalian immigrant of South Sudanese here in Oslo, she has the same issue as in Senegal. The same girl has the same issue in Senegal. When you start seeing the problem is actually global, it's a global problem. Girls are suffering around, and boys too. Once you start seeing that, then when you're designing solutions in your organization, or meeting business leaders, or going and advocating for climate change, or advocating for any issue around the world, then you can see that it's a global issue. It's not just an African issue, but it's a global issue.
I think this is a beautiful statement to end with, powerful, and time's up for us. But thank you so much for your openness and inviting us in to your journey.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.